Hello everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Roku device itself. We're going to go over the basics and what all the Roku can do in just a second. Okay everyone, so I've done various videos in the past about different Roku apps, but I realized that I never really did a video going over the basics of the Roku, and it's a question I get quite often. So I figured I would go over the basics of the Roku for those that don't have one yet or just got one so that you know what this device can do. It's a very powerful device. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over the remote. Once I go over the remote, we'll go back to the Roku interface and we'll look around. So we'll start off with the power button and the volume up and down and mute buttons. So on the side here we have those, on the top we have the power button. Those are all to control your TV. Those do not control the Roku, and not all Roku remotes have those buttons. Next we have this little hole underneath the power button, and that is a microphone. This is a voice remote, and what this microphone is there for is voice searching. So this button here with a microphone on it, you tap that button, and instead of having to use the D-pad to select letters and slowly and tediously type in what you're searching for, you can actually just tap that microphone button and speak into the remote and tell Roku what you're looking for, and it'll do a voice search for you. The two buttons at the top here, I like to think of these in terms or in relation to a web browser. On your Roku, the home page is going to be the page that comes up when your Roku turns on. It's going to have all your apps listed there. The back button here is going to take you back to the previous screen. And this will work with the Roku interface as well as any apps that you're running on the Roku. It'll take you back to the previous screen. Next, we have what Roku calls the D-pad. So you have four directional buttons, up, down, left, and right. This allows you to navigate around the interface. And then your OK button is used to select. So it's kind of like a mouse a little bit, but it's a D-pad. So you move around and you select using this D-pad. The next button we have is not on all Roku remotes, but it's the skip back button. And it will skip back 20 seconds and resume playing. So, for example, if a scene happened in a movie you're watching or a show you're watching, and you're thinking to yourself, what just happened? It's an easy button to tap. It takes you back 20 seconds and you can rewatch what just happened. The star button here is our options button. Now, in the Roku interface, it will actually display a menu. And I like to compare it to Windows. When you right click on the mouse, it pops up a menu instead of selecting something. And so this is very similar. When you're in the Roku interface and you tap that button, it will pop up a menu. In each app that runs on the Roku, they may have a different function for this options button. So you have to look at the options in that app to see what this button does for that app. But in the Roku interface, that's what it does. And next, we have the standard buttons. We have rewind, fast forward, and play pause. And these are pretty much self-explanatory. Rewind, fast forward, pause, and then tapping it again plays. And that's pretty much what those buttons do. And then we have these application specific buttons. Now, just from experience, this will be different for every Roku remote, just about. But from my experience, usually Netflix and Sling are the ones I see the most here. But this can vary depending on what model Roku you purchase. And it can also vary based on where you purchase the Roku. For example, if you purchase it at Walmart, I think Walmart includes the Voodoo button on the Rokus that they sell. So it's really going to depend on where you purchase the Roku as well, what buttons you get here. So if we want to look at a side view of the remote, we can see that. The remote is very small, but it's very powerful. So there's not a million buttons here that you have to figure out what button does what. It's very simple. Once you use it for a little bit, you're going to get very used to it. It feels very natural. And then lastly, I'll show you the box. And we can see this is actually the Roku voice remote with TV controls. So two things to note before we move on to the interface. Not all Roku remotes have the TV controls, and not all Roku remotes have the voice functions. That's important. Now, some of the higher end Rokus, like the Roku Ultra, will also have a headphone jack over on the left-hand side that allows you to listen privately to whatever it is you're watching. So that's another variation of the remote. But in its most basic form, all Roku remotes are going to have the D-pad, they're going to have the home and the back buttons, and they're going to have the option button, and then your rewind, fast forward, and play buttons. They're all going to have that. So let's go ahead and move on to the interface and see what it can do. Okay, so here we are in the Roku. So the first thing we're going to see when we start up the Roku is we're going to see our home screen. This is like on your iPhone or your Android device. You're going to have a list of all your apps. These are tiles, and you just select one of these apps to open it. And you have some shortcuts here. These are the apps that I have installed. Roku calls them streaming channels. So let me just go ahead and open up Sling to show you real quick. And once you open up this app, you can go in and interact with the app and all the content that's available within it. Now, I don't have an account with Sling, so it's going to tell me I need to subscribe to get that. So I'm going to hit the back arrow, and I can exit that way, or I can just hit the home button. Now, what I always tell everybody is when you're getting ready to turn off the TV or you're going to stop streaming for a while, always hit the home button. That will stop whatever you were in. It'll stop all the streaming, and it'll take you back to your home screen. And you can see I have a bunch of different apps here. I have Lowcast and the Roku channel. Some of the good free ones, I have other videos on these. Tubi, the Roku channel, and Pluto are some really good free apps. You don't have to have a subscription to view content on those. The options button, the little star on your remote, if I tap that, I have options come up. It'll tell me the version of the app. It'll allow me to rate the app. I can move the app around the home screen here. I can actually remove the app from here. I can check for updates to that app. I can provide feedback, or I can close this menu. And just to show you how you can customize this, let's say I do subscribe to Sling and I watch Sling most often. So I want it to appear at the top of my list. So I'm going to select it here and I'm going to hit the options button. And I'm going to say move channel. And then I'm going to use my D-pad up arrow. And I'm going to move it all the way to the top of the list. And then I'm going to tap OK. Place it there permanently. So now Sling TV will always show at the top of my list. You do have advertisements over on the right. Unfortunately, there's no way to get rid of those. So let's go back over. Next, we're going to have the featured free area. So if you want to find free content to watch, this is where you're going to have everything that Roku is featuring. And you're going to have everything from TV shows to news to movies, that kind of thing. You even have music here as well. So if you're looking for something free and you don't want to go into the individual apps to look, this is a good place to start as well. So we can go back. The My Feed feature is pretty neat. I don't really use this all that much, but you can use this to follow movies and TV shows and things that are coming soon. And it actually functions like a news feed, and it'll give you updates on the things that you are following. I'm not going to get too much into the feed in this video, but they do have a welcome video here. So if you're interested in the feed, if you think it's something that's going to be useful to you, definitely go in here and watch this welcome video, and that'll get you started. Next, we have the movie store and the TV store. These are provided by Fandango, and you're going to have, it's kind of like going into an app, but it's right in the Roku menu. So you're going to have all different categories and picks. If you want to watch things that are under $3, under $5, under $8, and so on and so forth, you can go in here and you can select something here. The nice thing it does in here is it gives you like the ratings for the movie, what the reviews are for the movie, the runtime. If I go into the title, I can watch the trailer. I can add it to my watch list. I can purchase or rent it, and so on and so forth. So this is the area for TV and movies from Fandango. The TV store is going to be similar. For example, I can go in here, and this is going to be for TV shows. So for example, if I go into Star Trek Picard and I select that, I can actually purchase the entire first season. It gives me a little bit of information about it. It tells me the cost, looks like $13.99, and I get 21 episodes. So let's go ahead and go back. That's the TV store. Now, an area that is really powerful that I really like about the Roku, I think is one of its best functions, is the search feature. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do a quick search for heat. Now I've already searched for it, so I'm going to go back over here. And this is where the voice control, if you have the voice control in your remote, this is where that comes in handy, because instead of having to select each letter, you can tap the voice command button and you can tell it what you want to search for. But let me show you the power of this. So I'm going to select heat. This is my search, and it gives me 5 different providers here. And Redbox looks like the most inexpensive option if I want to rent and watch this. So I have 5 different options. I can follow this movie. Now, in this case, this is a movie that was released in 1995. So there's probably not going to be too much changing with it. But for example, in this case, if I followed this movie, it would notify me of any price changes. So I'll give you a quick example. So let's say you find a movie and the rental fee is $10. And you don't really want to pay $10, but you might want to watch it later. So you can follow the movie, and then maybe a couple months later, it'll be available for rental for $5, and then you'll be more willing to watch it at that price. So that's where that function can come in. There are other benefits to following movies on the Roku, but that's just one example. But you can see that the search function is pretty powerful. It gives you all the different services, even if you don't have those services installed on your Roku device. And it even tells you, like, for example, on some of these services, we can watch in 4K. So if you have a 4K TV, that's good information to know. So a very powerful search function. one of my most favorite features of the Roku. The next area is going to be a really important area as well. This is your streaming channels area. So when you go in here, this is like the App Store on your phone. This is all the different apps for the Roku that you can use to access content. For example, I can go through a couple of these. I have Apple TV, YouTube TV, Motor Trend. We can see Sling is in there, HBO Max, and so on and so forth. And you can search through these channels. If you want to find a specific channel, you can search. If you want to just see what is recommended, you can go to this list and you can see there's a whole bunch of different channels here. So let me select Boomerang here real quick. And if I go in here, it tells me all about it. It tells me the rating. I can add the channel from here. And I can even view screenshots if I want to see what it looks like before I add it. So let's select that. And so I can scroll through. Some of these are slow loading right now, but you get the idea. You can see screenshots of what the app is going to look like before you install it to see if it's something you want to use. So I think it's really useful. It's very, very similar to an app store on a phone or tablet, really. So it makes it very easy to get into the Roku ecosystem and be familiar with kind of how it works. So that's the channel store. This is where you're going to come to get all of the apps that you want to use to access content. Next, we have the My Offers area. This is kind of, for advertisements. They want to offer you things, sell you things, which is fine. It doesn't really bother me. I believe you can turn it off in settings. I'll show you that a little bit later. But you can see here it's giving me the option to buy a replacement Roku remote. It's also given me the option to upgrade my Roku Premiere. I'm not interested in either one of those things right now, so we're going to move on to settings. So in settings, the first option you're going to have here is network. This is going to be important because the first thing you want to do when you set up your Roku, if you're on Wi-Fi, which pretty much everybody is going to be on Wi-Fi, you're going to want to go into your network section. And if I go into the About, it's going to tell me the network I'm connected to, and it's going to tell me the signal strength. That's something I really want to pay attention to. If your signal strength is poor, you're going to most likely get a lot of buffering. The video is going to pause, it's going to hang, it's going to start, it's going to stop, and it's going to be a very frustrating experience. So you want to make sure your signal strength is good or excellent, something in that range. You don't want it to be poor. If it's poor, you need to do something to correct that. We also have the other information about our network, such as the IP address, the hardware MAC address of the Roku device, and the wireless channel. We can also check our connection. So if we want to check our connection to the internet, we can do that. We can set up a connection. So if we need to change our wireless connection, we can change that here. When you first set it up, you're going to set up your wireless connection this way as well. And then lastly, in the network section, we have the bandwidth saver. Now, by default, this is on, and I recommend you leave it on. A lot of ISPs now are going to be capping your data. I know of one ISP already that does that. I'm not going to mention any names. And so you really don't want to be streaming the data if you're not really watching it. So this helps you cut it off. Now, I wish you could adjust it and make it something shorter than 4 hours, but it is what it is. Maybe they'll allow you to adjust that in the future. So I recommend you leave this on. And what it's going to do is if you haven't used the remote in 4 hours, you're going to get a message and it's going to ask you, are you still there? Are you still watching? And if you don't respond, it's going to stop streaming whatever is streaming at that time. And again, you can turn it off. Next, we have remotes and devices. If your Roku came with a basic remote and you want to go with a more advanced remote that has like a headphone jack or TV controls or voice functions, you can set that up here. There's also Roku accessories like, for example, a sound bar. This is where you would come to set up your accessories. Next, we have themes. And this allows you to personalize your Roku. You can see here that the purple screen with the white lettering, this is the default Roku theme. It's been around for a long time this way. And I kind of like it. I've gotten used to it. But you can change that. They have 5 popular theme packs here to choose from. These are actually theme packs, so they're going to have all the different things like wallpaper and screensavers and sounds and things like that. We can also individually select things like wallpaper, screensavers. There's some neat screensavers here. I like the floating circles. I think they're kind of neat. We can customize our sounds. And something I've always liked about Roku is the seasonal themes. Now, these are on by default. And these are nice because the themes will temporarily change the look of your menus on holidays and other special times of the year. For example, like Christmas time, Thanksgiving, Halloween, and it kind of gets you in a better mood. You turn on your TV and it's this new theme, and I really like it. But if you don't like that, if you want everything to always be the same every day, you can certainly turn it off as well. Next, we have the screensaver wait time. Now, by default, it's 10 minutes. You can set it to up to 30 minutes. Oops, I'm in the wrong place here. And you can set it to as little as 1 minute, or you can disable it. Now, here's the thing with screensavers. If you leave your Roku and you leave your TV on, your screen could get burn-in, something that's called burn-in. And that's where whatever's displayed on the screen stays there. And whatever you watch, you always see remnants of that there. This is important. Do not disable your screensaver. I would say 10 minutes is a good option. If you set it too low, it's going to constantly be coming on and going on and off, and it might get annoying. So I would say 10 minutes. If 10 minutes is too quick for you, set it up to 30 minutes. But I do not recommend you disable it. And if you made a bunch of changes and you're really unhappy with the way they look, instead of having to go through and undo each one of the changes, you can simply restore the default theme from here. Next, we have display type. Now you can see my display type is set here at 4K. Your display type is going to be detected during the setup process, so you should not need to come in here and change your display type. If you do come in here and change these settings, it could cause you not to be able to see what's on the screen, and that could be a problem. So I don't recommend you do anything in the display type settings unless you have a good reason to do so. Next, we have accessibility, and we have captions. We can turn captions on or only on when there's a replay. By default, they're off. We can change our preferred language for captions. And we can really customize the caption style. As you can see, we have all the different types of things we can do with the text, the background color, the opacity, and so on and so forth. You can really customize this. The audio guide, when you turn this on, this can get very annoying, but some folks may need it. And if you need it, it's certainly not going to be annoying. The audio guide can be turned on there. And this is the speech rate for the audio guide, the volume for the audio guide, and then a shortcut for the audio guide. Now, this could be a problem If you press the options button 4 times very quickly, it's going to turn on the audio guide. What I've seen happen to some folks is, their kids or their grandkids get a hold of the remote and they hit it and they turn on this audio guide, and then the parents or grandparents can't figure out how to turn it off. If you think that might be a problem, you can come in here and disable it, and the shortcut will not work. And if you want to turn on the audio guide, you'll have to come in here and turn it on from the menu. Okay, so those are your accessibility options. Next, we have audio, and we could change things like the menu volume. Default is medium. We can change the audio mode. Now, in our case, we only have the option for stereo, but if you have a more advanced system, you may have additional options. You can come in here and change that if you need to. In most cases, though, you're probably not going to need to change this. This should be done during the setup process. And you can set the preferred language for your audio. So if you want to set a different language, this will communicate with the apps that you have installed. And when the audio is available, it will change your audio. For example, if you select Spanish, when it's available, you'll hear Spanish audio. HDMI, you can change your settings for HDMI here. Again, this is typically done during the setup process. I would leave it to auto detect unless you have a really good reason to change this. Next, we have the home screen. Here we can customize a little bit on the home screen. We can show or hide the featured free section. We can show or hide the movie and TV stores. We can hide the offers, and we can even hide the shortcuts as well. So you can turn some of those things off to simplify the interface a little bit. Next, we have the payment method. Now, Roku does not charge a monthly fee. A lot of people ask that, don't you have to pay a monthly fee for it? No, there's no monthly fee. There are some apps, just like on your smartphone, there's some apps that are free. There's some that have a cost associated with them. That's why you store a payment method with Roku. So if you decide to purchase something like an app or a subscription, you can purchase subscriptions also and bill them through your Roku account versus having to set up an account with each provider. So here you can set your payment method. You do have Apple AirPlay and HomeKit capabilities. I'm not going to go into those too much here. You have legal notices. Pretty much every service that you use is going to have all this good stuff, privacy policies, end user license agreements, terms and conditions, and so on and so forth. This area is one that you probably want to visit after you set up your Roku. This is the privacy section. Now, the first option we have is advertising. Now, this is not such a big deal. I don't care if they track me on ads, but if you don't want it to do that, you can turn it off here. You can also reset your advertising identifier. It's not going to stop Roku from showing you ads. It's just going to stop the personalization. But the most important section, in my opinion, if you have a voice capable remote, this is your access to your microphone on your Roku remote. Now, by default, it should be set to prompt you whenever a channel tries to access your microphone. And you can choose whether to allow it or not allow it. So check this, make sure it's set to prompt you and not set to always allow. Then below that, here's where you can check and see what channels already have permissions to your microphone. And if you see anything in there you don't like, you can reset all the permissions here as well. So definitely check out the privacy section after you set up your Roku, and check back on this frequently, especially if other people in the household are using your Roku device. Next, we have the help section. In here, we have some tips and tricks on the Roku. This is kind of useful. You can come in here and watch this, and you can learn some things about the Roku device. It'll also help you troubleshoot some common issues. Next is probably the most comprehensive section, and that's the system settings. So in here we have the About section. This is going to tell us information about our Roku device. It's going to give us the email address for the Roku account. It's going to give us the model number and serial number of the Roku, as well as the software version, the uptime, the device ID, the network name, IP address, and MAC address. So if you need to contact Roku support for anything, they may come in here and ask you for some of this information. Time, of course, we have our time zone and our clock format settings. We can control other devices. So I actually use this One Touch Play. This allows the Roku to tell your TV to automatically switch its active source input to the Roku player when you press a button on your Roku remote. Now, if your TV supports this, this is a great feature because instead of having to turn on your TV and then operate the Roku, you can simply hit the home button or any other button on the Roku remote, and it will power up your TV and switch to the input that your Roku is connected to, all with one key press on your Roku remote. So if your TV supports this, leave this on. This is a great feature. Next, we have language. Of course, we can change the language here. We need to. Screen mirroring. Again, you want to probably go in here and set it to prompt, and then you can control devices. These are devices that can cast to your Roku. Next, we have the system update section. Now, the Roku will automatically update its software periodically, but you can come in here and you can check, and this will tell you when it was the last time it checked for an update, when's the last time it actually installed an update, and then if you hit the right arrow again, you can actually manually check for an update. In most cases, you'll probably just let it update in the background. Next, we have system restart. So just like your computer or your phone, sometimes it just doesn't work right. Something's glitchy or not doing what it's supposed to do. And what's the best solution all the time, right? Restart it. That's what everybody tells you to do. So here is where you come to restart your Roku if it's misbehaving. And so you just go here and you say restart, and it will restart your Roku device and hopefully correct whatever glitch you had. This is something fairly recent. It's called guest mode. Now, guest mode allows you to put your Roku in a guest mode, but it's a different mode. So you don't have to change all your Roku settings to let someone else use it. Let's say you have someone staying over or something like that for a week or 2 weeks. You can put it in guest mode, and the visitor can log in. They can enjoy all their channels on the Roku device for however long you select them to be able to do that. And then after the date that you set, your Roku will automatically go back into its normal mode with all of your settings. A very useful feature, especially if you entertain a lot or have guests over a lot. Next, we have the advanced system settings. In here, we can do things like a factory reset. This will completely wipe out your Roku device and take it back to the state that it was in when you took it out of the box. You'll have to set it up all over again. In some cases, you may want to do that. And this is where you do it. You can also reset your network connection. This is basically going to clear all of your wireless network settings, and you will have to reset that up again. Here we can enable or disable device connect. It tells us down here what enabling it does for us. So obviously, if you disable it, it's going to disable all those features. So if you have an enhanced remote, if you want to use the mirroring function, and so on, you probably don't want to disable this because it's going to disable those functions. It is enabled by default though. Next, we have control by mobile apps. Now, in most cases, you can leave this network access at the default setting, and it tells you what each setting does. So, for example, the default is to allow control by mobile apps on private networks and accept commands. The permissive setting allows control always by the mobile apps, whether it's a private network or a public network, but it only accepts commands from a private network. So I wouldn't set it to permissive unless you have a really good reason to do that. The default is probably going to be the best setting. And then, of course, if you don't want anybody being able to control your Roku from the mobile app, you can completely disable that access here as well. And lastly, we have advanced display settings. Now, you probably don't want to come in here and adjust anything here. When you start tweaking the display settings, unless you know exactly what you're doing, like I said on the display settings earlier, you have the possibility that you're going to not have any display on your TV screen. And it's going to be very aggravating to try to solve that because you're not going to be able to see anything. You're going to have a black screen. So unless you have a really, really good reason to come in here and turn this on, I would leave this off. And that, folks, in a nutshell, is what Roku is all about. It's a very powerful platform. It's very user friendly. And anyone pretty much of any age can figure out very quickly how to use it. And I think that's why they've been so successful. Folks, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps other YouTubers find quality content, and we really appreciate it. Click on subscribe and then click the bell to get notified whenever new content is added. As always, comments, questions, and suggestions are welcome below, and we thank you very much for watching.